Hello everybody, it's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for a Fourth Wing reading vlog. Hi guys. So, I've taken myself out for coffee this morning and I'm about to start reading the book. Yeah, wish me luck. So, it's been about a week and a couple of days since I started reading Fourth Wing and I haven't updated you guys. So Alison and I had decided to read up to chapter 10, so read 1 through 9, and that's what we did. You guys saw my tabs that I had organised what the tabs were. I've since added, well actually I haven't written what it is yet, but I've added one for bad decisions because our main character is really bad at making decisions. So as you can see, the majority of the tabs are blue. It's mostly cheesy. Now, I'm not hating it. I am quite enjoying myself, to be honest. It's not amazing literature. It's not particularly fantastically well written. It's not in any way particularly original. I'm getting vibes of Divergent, of The Hunger Games, of a little bit trying to be, well, a little bit trying to be Sarah J Maas and a little bit trying to be George R.R. Martin. I don't think, I've never read Divergent. I've only ever seen the movies. Potentially it's as good as Divergent. I don't know because I've never read it. I don't think the movies are particularly amazing. I don't know that it's quite as good as The Hunger Games, although I wouldn't call The Hunger Games particularly incredible literature either. But I do think that Suzanne Collins had a little bit more, well, thought a little bit more potentially about what she was writing. Now, like I said, I'm quite enjoying it, but I'm enjoying that I'm finding it cheesy, mostly. So I had to definitely turn off all of my critiquing abilities, which is fine because the writing is fine. What I'm coming to realize, well, what I already knew, but what I'm definitely really strengthening is that if it's really terrible writing, if it's lazy writing, if it's calling too much on like the obvious and the convenient, or if it's incredibly over-explained. Now, I know I love purple prose, I do. I love lyrical writing, I love descriptions, but if it's overly descriptive, or not so much overly descriptive in the sense of like lyrical writing, but if it's I didn't edit this or no one else edited it, then that's when I start to feel like it's lazy writing, and that's when I start to dislike it. Now, this so far hasn't been lazy writing. It hasn't been like, Rebecca Yarros, I think, either knows how to edit reasonably well or has a really good editor for her books, because there's nothing in here that makes you go, seriously, why did you write that 6 times in a row in slightly different ways? Hello, Cassandra Clare. Or why did you like use that phrase that we've all heard a million and trillion and billion times? Or you obviously don't know how to explain or describe what you're doing here, so you're just using a really lazy shorthand. None of that is happening, so I'm not minding it, like I said. There is one, and I do have a tab set up, ready to go, for nice moments, and I did put in a tab for nice moments. I didn't make any promises about whether there was going to be spoilers in this vlog. I should just say there will be spoilers in this vlog now. I apologise. Fast forward if you don't want them. If you don't care, great. So, it is quite early on in the book. It's on page 16, and they're just doing the parapet, which is the first test they need to do to get into the Dragon Squadron in the first place, to train to become dragon riders. And they have to walk along this parapet, which is incredibly tall and skinny and dangerous, and her sister has kitted her. Her sister is a dragon rider. Her sister has kitted her out in dragon riding leathers and kitted her out with all the stuff she needs, really good boots, etc. And she's had a bit of a chat with her sister about what to expect, and they mention the footwear and talk about needing good grip. So she's standing in the line, she's waiting to go take her turn. She's kind of made a friend with, become friendly with someone super quickly, by the way. Super quickly she becomes, so I don't know if it's meant to be a sign that she's such a good person or if it's meant to be a sign that she's just so trusting or willing to make friends or so lonely, I don't know. But super quickly, she's just met this person, she realizes that she's wearing shoes that are going to be bad. So she decides to swap one boot with this person, and they have this conversation about the fact that the other person, Rhiannon, is a slightly bigger size than Violet. And so they swap shoes, and Violet has a shoe that's slightly too big for her and also no grip, and a shoe that's good and has a grip. And then the other girl, Rhiannon, has now got a shoe that fits her but is bad grip, so potentially dangerous, and then a shoe that doesn't fit her and she isn't, like, she's gonna have to scrunch her foot up in to get into. It's supposedly a really good shoe and it's got good grip and everything, but surely, anyway, I marked this as a nice moment because she was thinking about, you know, other people and yada yada yada. And it's already been mentioned that, like, you have to be ruthless and the dragons only want to bond with ruthless people and dragons are ruthless, and you have to be, like, dauntless, aka Divergent, in order to become a dragon rider, hence the whole Divergent comparison. Anyway, Alison, who I'm buddy reading this with, and I were chatting, not yesterday, the day before, and she mentioned to her that was a stupid decision, and she's right, it is. We talked about it a bit, and it is, and it's an incredibly stupid decision, because now she has a shoe that fits her that's good, one shoe, but she also has a shoe that doesn't fit her, that has bad grip, and then the other girl, who is the one that was wearing shoes that fit, but that's the only thing you could say about them. The rest, like, it's a bad shoe. And also wearing a shoe that is supposedly a good shoe, but doesn't fit her. So surely she's actually now got she's still got two bad shoes. Because yes, it's a better shoe. Like, is it better to wear a hiking I don't know, like, sandal and a hiking boot that doesn't fit you properly but is in general made to be hiking in on a hike? Is it better to wear that, maybe not a sandal, but you get my idea, like or even just like a pair of Doc Martens? Like, they're boots, they have a little bit of grip, they're decent for walking around London streets, but they're not going to do a great job of walking in the backcountry, in the bush, etc. So you're going on a hike and your friend says, hey, Doc Martens are crap for what we're going to do. We're going to be scaling cliffs, we're going to be scaling rocks, we're going to be jumping trees. Do you want to swap? I've got these really great boots. Do you want to swap one boot with me? And your friend says, yeah, but I'm a different size than you. Oh, well, that'll be okay. How that's not going to be a good, neither of her shoes should have been good. Anyway, this whole premise now is set up that because Rhiannon and Violet, who is our main character, swap shoes, they both have a good shoe, they both have a bad shoe is the premise. But of course, like I said, is Rhiannon really wearing a good shoe and a bad shoe, or just two bad shoes in different ways? Anyway, the whole premise is that Rhiannon makes it across. They both make it across. Rhiannon does so only because she was wearing the shoe that had better grip and she was able to, like, not fall and not die. So that's dumb. So that was a bad decision and a dumb premise. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, because you turn off you're taking this seriously. Like, if it was Robin Hobb or George R. R. Martin or Brandon Sanderson or even Suzanne Collins, you would say they are better than that. They would have made more sense. They would have made more sense. They would have referenced that this is still not great, guys, but it's better than what it was before. This is why they after making such a big thing of it and then making a bigger thing of it when she's gotten across the bridge, parapet, whatever, then, like, they would have made they would have had an explanation for how it was better. They would have made more of a thing about it. Like, it would have made more sense in their hands. But anyway, you have to turn off your disbelief, like we were saying. So that's fairly early on. And most of it, like I said, is cheesy. I kept that as a nice moment, but I've added, you can kind of not even really tell, but I've added stupid decision. I well, it says it's enemies to lovers. I'm pretty sure I know who the enemy / lover is going to be. She has a best friend who is already in the squadron and is a squadron leader and has a rider, has a dragon and everything. She's supposed to have gone into the scribe quadrant. She's not supposed to have gone into the dragon riding quadrant, but her mother insisted that she had to. But they talk about her having this condition whereby basically, I don't know if it's like a condition where you have really bendy joints so you can like bend your thumbs back, or if she just has really weak joints, or if she has like muscular dystrophy, I don't know. But she has some kind of condition that makes her joints quite weak and prone to sprains and dislocations and etc. So her mother knows this, and her mother insisted that she had to go into the dragon riding squadron, despite the fact that A, she has this condition, and the dragon riding quadrant is all about strength and stamina and athleticism and fierceness and toughness. So she because of this condition, it's extremely hard for her. It would have probably been okay had she trained for it, but she's been training to become a scribe her whole life. So she has this condition that potentially puts her on the back foot, and then she's not trained at all. So she's forced to go into this by her mother. My theory is the mum just hates her and wants her dead, but doesn't want to actually kill her. Just wants her to die by making her try to be a dragon rider. Alison's theory is that there's some kind of prophecy that has said something about a member of this family that has to be, or all the family members have to be riders, or all the children are going to be this amazing rider that's going to fix this thing, whatever. I think Alison's probably, I mean, as much as I like my theory, I think Alison's probably correct, because otherwise it makes no sense. One of us has to be right, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Why would you insist? You already have one daughter who is a dragon rider. You're a dragon rider. You're in fact the general. You're the commander of everything. Your partner was a scribe, so you obviously at some point in your life didn't hate scribes. One of your other children has died from trying to be a dragon rider, or being a dragon rider. I'm not sure. I think he became one, but then he died. Anyhow. So, like, why would you force an untrained, disabled child to become, unless there was some secret reason, i.e. you hate them and you want them dead, or there's a prophecy? It doesn't make any sense otherwise. Give me a second. So, yeah. Sorry about that. I had to turn off the vacuum cleaner because he's noisy and I'm talking. But also we have puppy sitting today, and the puppy we are sitting is terrified of robot vacuum cleaners. Yeah, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then there is like I was going to say love triangle, but I've heard a lot of romance booktubers talk about the fact that if it's one person and then two people wanting that one person, and the one person potentially wanting both, but there's nothing on the top, the two people don't want each other, then it's a V, not a triangle. So there's this potential love V going on. So there's the hate, then there's the best friend. The best friend, it's supposed to be that he's really sweet and cares about her and, you know, is trying to look out for her. He is just desperate to get her into the scribe quadrant and out of the dragon riding quadrant because he thinks she's going to die, which is fair, but he keeps going behind her back and trying to organise ways for her to become a scribe and to secretly get her out and into the scribe without talking to her about it and without checking with her. Now, I don't quite know why she keeps saying no, because she keeps saying no and she wants to stay, but she also hates it, and she keeps talking about wanting to be a scribe, and she keeps talking about studying and how it calms her down and all these things. So it doesn't really make any sense to me. Even if it was totally not his place and totally talking down to her and making choices for her, I would still potentially take it because she doesn't want to be there, but she's deciding to stay. And then you have the potential hate that's going to become love interest. It does say enemies to lovers, so I'm assuming that's where it's going. And he hates her on sight because she is the daughter of the general who was responsible for putting down a rebellion that his parents were a member of. Which is fine, but like, he's kind of a Rysand kind of character. Like he commands shadows, first of all. His magic is shadows, so yes, Rysand. And he's like this dark, brooding kind of character who is like potentially on the wrong side of the situation and not entirely trustworthy. Very Rysand, but I don't think quite has the nuance of Rysand. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Sarah J. Maas is the most amazing author in the world, but I do think she is quite good at making characters and talking about, giving characters like actual character arcs. I mean, I'm not that far into it. I'm 135 pages into it, so maybe he gets more character later, and we're probably going to find out that there's a lot more to be sympathetic about him for. But another thing that Alison and I talked about, that Alison brought up, was why is it so important for dragon riders to be tough? I mean, I get why they need to have athleticism because they're riding dragons, and I get why they need to be strong because, again, riding dragons, but they don't talk about presence of mind or strength of mind or intelligence. And I'm getting the impression that these dragons, along with any dragon in lore ever and any dragon in mythology ever and fantasy, are incredibly intelligent and very ruthless. So surely you need to be intelligent and strong of mind, and they don't talk about that. They talk about your need to be a fighter, and you, like, I get the stamina, but why do you need to be a fighter when you are riding dragons? Like, if you're on top of a dragon, no one's even gonna, like, you're barely noticed. Like, dragons are huge. I mean, again, I'm assuming we haven't really come across dragons, but dragons are huge and scary creatures. Like, they can carry their own. You really aren't going to be, you're not riding a horse and fighting someone on horseback. You're like barely going to be noticed. And apparently they're fighting griffin riders, which again, I don't like. Griffins are huge creatures that are quite dangerous in and of themselves. It did say something, we had this conversation and then I've read on, and it did say something about when you get off and fight hand to hand, but why would you do that again? Anyway, I'm hoping that some of these questions will be explained. Like I said, I'm like, I don't know, a quarter of the way through at this point, so hopefully there's some explanations to come. We shall see. But anyway, that's where I'm at with Fourth Wing. Don't hate it, don't love it, it's not going to be a favourite, but I'm also not going to DNF. I'm happy to continue. I want to see what all the fuss is about. So far, I don't get it, but at the same time, I'm not ready to throw it into the sea yet. So I'll keep you posted. Hi. So we are at the point where they are about to be shown off to the dragons, I guess. I don't think it's the point where the dragons are actually going to bond with anyone, but they're about to be shown off to the dragons. So the dragons can just... I'm a little bit confused, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, they're about to be shown off to the dragons. And the dragons... They've had a whole bunch of... They've been told all the different dragons that are there and what kind of things they could expect and blah, blah, blah. And now they've just found out that a feathertail has joined, and feathertails are apparently, I don't know if they're like extra vicious, but they're extra something, and they don't bond with humans. We all know where this is going, right? Like, obviously, Violet's gonna bond with the feathertail. It's gonna be a big thing. Why did the feathertail pick her? She's so weak and useless and crap. We can see where this is going. Let's find out if I'm correct. Let's see, is Rebecca Yarros really that predictable? Turns out that the feathertail is very small, and everyone seemed to think, except for Violet, seemed to think that it was there for not good enough. So I don't know how that's going to go now, but I do think Violet's going to bond to it. But they were all joking about Violet should bond to it because she's crap and weak as well as it. It's going to turn out to be somehow that, like, that's not true, and they're going to be super strong at controlling this thing that protects them from the griffins. I'm sure I'm going in the right direction here, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. Okay, so I was right, but I was wrong. She didn't bond to the feathertail. The feathertail was quite a different dragon. It didn't have claws. It can fly, but it doesn't seem to be able to breathe fire. So it's, like, compared to other dragons, it's quite different and potentially quite weak. Some of the douchebags in her squadron decided to try and kill this dragon, and decided to try and kill her because she defended the dragon, and that didn't work. And let me tell you, this was stupid writing and stupid
storytelling, because she's supposed to be this super weak character who can't do anything, always has weak joints, always gets herself into trouble. She's hurt her ankle on the way to try and defend the dragon because she's found out what these guys are doing. And she gets into a fight with the three of them. She's standing in front of the dragon, defending the dragon, and these three are squaring up to fight her. And she manages, apparently the weak one who can't fight manages to defeat them all. Like, just no. And then a giant black dragon turned up, the unbonded dragon that everyone was talking about, turns up to defend this little tiny Feathertail because she was, assumedly, it doesn't explain yet, I haven't got to the part where it explains yet, but assumedly, because she was defending the Feathertail, it then decides to bond to her. So I was wrong in the sense that she didn't bond to the little weak dragon, but she bonded to the unexpected dragon that everyone's going to be all impressed about. So I was right in that sense, but I didn't see that part coming. But just the fight with the 3-on-1, and she's all weak and already injured, and yet she still manages to defeat them, partly by trickery, but partly she actually just, partly by being like a bit quicker and that sort of thing. But like, just no, she shouldn't have been able to defeat them, like, at all. It's just, why write that whole thing if you're gonna then make it completely stupid? Like, she should have won by the dragon stepping in and killing them. She should have won by some kind of like intelligence instead of brute force. When, yeah, it's just dumb. Anyway, that's where we're at. As you can see, it's still predominantly cheesy, but I do have a couple of new tabs. So we have How Convenient and Makes No Sense. I replaced good writing with How Convenient. I don't have many bad writings. Like, I don't think Rebecca Yarros is a bad writer. There's a couple of moments that are a bit clunky, but I just don't think she's a very good writer, so I haven't given her good writing. I may end up deciding I need it, but anyway. It's now How Convenient, because there are a lot of times that are just oh so convenient. Alice and I talked the other day, and we both decided that this is kind of dumb, but fun. It's, I think I said before, we're comparing it to pizza. It's like Domino's, you know? It's like perfectly fine. You enjoy it at the time. It's not particularly amazing, but it's also not like cardboard frozen pizza from the supermarket, you know? Not that there's anything wrong with frozen pizza. Some frozen pizza can be amazing, but you can also get the basically cardboard. But pizza is one of those things, you know, like most of the time it's really good even when it's not very good because it's pizza. But occasionally it can be terrible. So this is kind of an in-between. This is kind of a low end of the like decent takeaway places, but it's still a decent takeaway place, you know? Something like Sarah J. Maas is still pizza. It's still kind of like fast food. I mean, I know you can get like fancy pizzas from restaurants, but I'm talking like fast food pizza. It's like the local one of a kind pizza place that you go to because it's your go to like special fancy pizza place. But like it's still takeaway pizza. It's still not like, you know, a fancy restaurant or even a fancy pizza in a fancy restaurant. But yeah. Don't really have anything much to say about the specific things that are happening, except for the fact that at the beginning of each chapter, they have like a little section that is like a quote from something. It's a quote from something in the world. So this one is a quote from an unedited history of Navarre, which is the land that she's come from, that she's in. And that is usually something about the actual world and about what's actually going on. And I think that's the most interesting part. And they're like 5 or 6 lines long. It's like a paragraph at the beginning of each chapter. My main criticism of this book, apart from the fact that it's kind of cheesy, which is fine because it's pizza, is that it's just like it's too long. Like I really don't need quite this much description of breakfast, you know. But something is just happening that is both kind of exciting but also how convenient. And I'm going to keep reading and see how it goes before I talk to you about it. But I think that Violet is getting her signet powers, which is what the riders get when they bond to a dragon. They get a special magical power. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be like a once in a lifetime, because obviously we have to have the weak, wimpy girl turn out to be like the incredible, amazing one that no one expected, that hasn't been seen for generations. Yada yada yada. Like, I know that this is a trope that it's trope for a reason. Like, people use it a lot, and sometimes it works. Like, I mean, they kind of did it with Amari and the Knight Brothers, but sometimes it's just kind of like, of course. So it's a bit, how convenient. Oh, we'll see how we go. She could do it really well. Like I said, I don't think Rebecca Yarros is a terrible writer. I just, like, she writes decent pizza. Anyway, that's my update. Sorry, I just remembered something else that Alison and I talked about. So, again, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, at the moment, like right at this moment, Violet is being attacked by a bunch of people who didn't actually bond to a dragon, because she's got this whole thing, the writer has got this whole thing about dragons honor, value strength, and value viciousness. And so if you kill one of the riders that got bonded, then you might be able to get their dragon because they'll respect you. But she's also made this whole thing about how dragons don't, like, humans don't live if their dragon dies once they're bonded, but dragons don't really cope very well if their person dies. So, like, wouldn't you have a grieving dragon that was now bonded? Like, would it choose to bond to you? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It feels like a convenient reason to have everyone continue to fight Violet, and for her to end up having to fight everyone and, like, win and show how amazing she is after all, once again, even though everyone thinks she's weak, and she does too, and yada yada yada. But also, why does she always manage to win these fights? Like, multiple people go against her, and she's this weak little injured person, often actually legitimately injured, but this weak little person who shouldn't be there. She's a scribe, she has no training, she's also really small, she's also really weak, she has this issue with her joints, blah 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 blah, but she still manages to beat like 4 or 5 people coming up against her. I don't care how crafty you are, how smart you are, how fast you are. If you are injured and you are smaller and weaker than everyone around you, and you are literally surrounded by enemies that want to kill you, then you are not going to win. Like, end of story. Like, Buffy struggles in those moments, and Buffy is like a superhero. How can this? Yeah, it's so convenient, and it makes no sense. And yet here I go, continuing to read. How is she going to get out of this one? Well, it turns out that she's now got this signet power that has this thing that makes her amazing in fights. How convenient. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't hate it. I know it sounds like I hate it, but like, it's just a little bit more like thought, please. You know? This, although I have to say, this is one of the reasons why I don't want to write fantasy, because I don't think that I would plot it and plan it very well, which would mean that I would end up with a bunch of gaping holes in my plot. So there you go. But anyway, it's making less and less sense as we go along. So she discovers that the feathertail that bonded with her is a hatchling, or a toddler, I guess. But like, so the whole thing is no one knows that much about feathertails, and it's a big surprise that, like, this is secret information. How is it secret information? How is there no one in all the scribe quadrant, because apparently that's a whole quadrant all by itself, how is there no one that has asked the question, I wonder what baby dragons look like, and gone hunting for baby dragons, and figured, like, how did they keep that entire part of their life cycle a secret? They couldn't have. It's just ridiculous. And why is she suddenly the first one to ever discover this? Like, there is nothing special about Violet. She is just some girl. She repeatedly says how unspecial she is.
Standing in front of the dragon.
Standing in front of a dragon, asking
Waiting for her to show her its kittens.
that. So, like, it's just so dumb. It's so dumb. Like, it makes no sense. What's gonna happen? The dragon has now, the baby dragon has now bonded to Violet, which means it's going to be seen around, which means it's going to be growing. At some point, it's going to grow into a fully fledged dragon, and people are going to be like, hey, wait a minute, weren't you, like, a different kind of dragon not that long ago? Oh, maybe you were the baby. Like, no. Like, just no. Why would this, no. It's also just hella cheesy. But anyway, I continue. I just need to have a massive rant. So, I have swapped out my tab for Nice Moments. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but that's not the point. I have swapped out my tab for Nice Moments for just kind of disturbing. Because even the nice moments are laced with stuff that is kind of disturbing. So, Xaden is extremely controlling, and she's had it out with Dane about how controlling he is. But apparently Xaden is fine because, conveniently, Xaden's dragon that he's bonded to is the mate of the dragon that, one of the dragons that Violet is bonded to. So if one of them dies, then the other will die because of the mate, because they have the same, like, the mateness of the dragons follow through into the bonds. Which, okay, fine, I mean, convenient, but whatever. But he's now like, I have to keep you alive because otherwise I could potentially die because of, like, the bond. So it's justified as to how controlling he is. And it's sort of, and she even had a conversation with Dane where Dane was saying, well, you let him get away with it. And she said that. And I was like, yeah, I get that, but, like, at least he should be having a conversation with you about, like, I think that I need to protect both of us. This is the reason. He doesn't do that. He just warded her room without her permission or even knowledge. She has a problem with this. But, like, for about 2 minutes, and then she's like, oh, but, otherwise. No. Even if it's for your own good, it is still controlling behavior. Like, legitimately, he's trying to keep her alive. Like, that's okay, fair. But, like, you don't just take someone else's power, take someone else's autonomy, take someone else's away from them so that you can keep them alive. Like, it's not okay to not have a conversation about that, to not make an arrangement, make a decision about that together. Anyway, the latest thing that I'm reading is that, so this is just stupid. She had a match with the main guy that absolutely wants her dead, who, he's not a main guy, but he's, like, the one that, like, doesn't shut up about killing her. And so she was like, I'm gonna die. So she figured out her match. She's got some way of figuring out the matches, even though she shouldn't. And she found out that he was allergic to oranges. So I don't know what she did exactly, but she did something, put orange in something, I don't know, but she did something so that he was allergic to oranges and got affected by the oranges. And, like, Xaden's response is like you're not going to always have that ability, which absolutely agree. But then he just is like, oh no, I can't. He gets another person to shadow her, again without her permission. So now he's decided, I can't have that anymore. I can't have anything. I can't trust you to look after yourself. That's it. No one has any control over this situation, so it's all going to be me. again, without her permission, without discussing it with her, without getting her feelings on it, just does it. And he says all this to her, and she just stands there and goes, okay. But meanwhile, she's yelling at Dane for the same thing. Anyhow, but like, he makes a good point, and I was thinking the same thing. You're not going to know anything about the people that you're apparently having. But like, how does this help you become a better soldier in a war? It doesn't. Like, maybe it means that you're good at research, but like, so that's like, you're good at research in the sense of, oh, I can research about the army and their tactics, but it doesn't. You're not going to know, like. You can't get up close and personal with people on the backs of griffins while you're on the back of dragon enough to be able to put a orange in their face if they're allergic to oranges, even if you were able to find that very specific information out about them. So it doesn't mean that she's getting better at anything. Like, it just means that she's surviving the school, and no one's calling her up on this. No one's like, yeah, okay, so this might be keeping you alive, but anyway. That's not really what I came here to rant about. What I came here to rant about was Xaden and the controllingness. So he turned around and said, like, I have to take total control of you and this situation, and like, no more Liam following you. I will do all of it, etc. Which obviously I have a problem with. Like, again, like I said, at the very least, have a conversation about it. Give her the capacity to discuss it with you. Don't just make it like. Obviously, it would be a problem even if he did that, but like gave her no, yeah, like I have no problem with him being her bodyguard. I have a problem with him with the whole dynamic whereby she just lets that happen. He just controls her, and that's it, and that's perfectly okay because otherwise he'll die. Like, Dane could argue the same thing because he's apparently, got feelings for her. He could argue that like he will die from these feelings if he doesn't. Do you get what I'm saying? Anyhow, so that happens. But then at the same time, she's trying to bring up the fact that they kissed and the fact that he has been avoiding her up until he made this decision and that she thinks the kiss, he's just afraid. And then he turns around and says, we're not discussing this, end of conversation. We're not discussing it. And she's like, well, why not? I want to discuss it. And he's like, well, I'm allowed to have boundaries, and that's my boundary. I'm allowed to have boundaries too, except that she's not apparently allowed to have boundaries because she's not allowed to complain about him boarding her room without any permission or even knowledge. She's not allowed to make decisions about whether she has a bodyguard, who it would be, and yet he's allowed to just blanketly say, we're not discussing that, despite the fact that she wants to. Like, no. Like, okay, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. We don't have to talk about it, but like, I want to, so therefore we now have a problem. The problem being that like we have this irreconcilable like thing that we're discussing or not discussing. So then that happened. So then that seems to be fine, by the way. That seems to be no issue whatsoever. So then they have this sparring thing. So she's talking about what clothes he's wearing, and they're fighting. They're having a sparring match, not a spar together. You know what I mean? And says, is it absolutely toxic that I'm attracted to this look on him? This is a question that she poses to the reader, assumedly, or herself. I don't know. Anywho, so I responded out loud. My partner's like, what? I responded out loud, no, it's not toxic that you're attracted to how he currently looks, or particularly the fact that he's wearing weapons. It's toxic that he's behaving the way he is. It's toxic that you are attracted to the way that he's behaving. It's toxic that you apparently think that his controllingness is also sweet at the same time. But the fact that you're attracted to what he currently is wearing, no, that's not toxic. Anyhow, and then basically they're having this battle, this sparring match, and they both got daggers. They both got daggers like strapped all over themselves. And then I have this whole conversation where he says to her, leave your blades off the mat. But you're armed, she says in return. You either trust me or you don't. Then she has a moment of finding him hot. Then she just does it. She takes all her daggers off and puts it over there. I'm unarmed. Are you happy now? But he's still armed. He still has all these daggers all over him. So she has to trust him, but he doesn't have to trust her. She has to capitulate to what he says, but he doesn't even have to explain why. There's so many issues with this. And I literally just got a message off a friend of mine, off the friend I'm reading this with, saying, because I sent her a message saying this book is getting worse, and she sent me a message back literally just then saying, but Zayden is so dreamy. I don't care how fucking hot someone is. They can't treat people this way. So the writing isn't awful. I mean, it's not great, but it isn't awful. This is problematic. And it's really annoying me. I've got about 200 pages left. It's way too long. Like, just so unnecessary. Can I make it through? Alison wants to keep going. I will keep going. I know there are probably loads of you yelling at me to just DNF, for goodness sake. I will keep going, but only because apparently there's a cliffhanger at the end. Like, I kind of want to see what the cliffhanger is, and I don't want them to get together. I think that's terrible, but like, I want them to get together because that's clearly where it's going. But like, just this is Twilight levels of problematic, and you all know what I think about Twilight and its issues. Anyway, that's my rant. Yeah, like I said, I have 200 pages left. This book is way too long. Of course, her signet is one that hasn't been seen for 1,000 years. Well, maybe they said 100, but still a fucking long time. And of course, it's one of the most powerful. This book is so predictable and just like, seriously. And now she's like, oh, but I don't want to be a killer. I don't want to be a weapon. You know, like, this whole time you've been talking about how people always die in the quadrant, and it's dangerous in the quadrant, but I want to stay in the quadrant, and I'm going to prove myself, and I'm blah, 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 and now you don't want to be a killer? It's exactly what you decided to stay for. What the fuck do you mean you don't want to be then go and be a scribe. Like, Dane has kept arranging for you, and yes, against your will, granted, but, you know, the opportunity was still there, and you could have gone and gotten out of it so you didn't have to be a killer, which is what you would eventually have become, regardless of how much you didn't want it, because you were a dragon rider, and literally the entire point of being a dragon rider is to go and fight in battles. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? And okay, you killed one of your own people on your side, but he was an asshole, and he was trying to kill you the whole time, so, you know, like, self-defense much? Make it make sense. Also, can it be done now? Like, seriously, what else is there to say?
Dinner?
Just, I know, but I'm reading it with my friend. So they had a big muster, and it turns out that it was supposedly they said they were under attack, but then they said, no, actually, it was just a thing that we said to get you to all come out here, but actually it's your final War Games test thingy. But now Zayden and a bunch of people have flown off to outside of the wards. So I don't think it was that at all. I think they really are under attack. But, like, why? They're Dragon Riders and the Griffin Riders are their enemies. There's no actual explanation about, like, why. The dragons ward Navarre from the Griffins. But again, why? Is it just that dragons and griffins don't get along? Like, there's no explanation. And, like, Violet, who's supposed to be A, really intelligent, B, know heaps of stuff because she was training to be a scribe, and 3, be really curious. Doesn't seem to be any of those things about this. This is what I would have appreciated. This 500-page book, and we get like tiny snippets of what's going on, and the rest of it is just, oh, we're trading, and he's got me on my back again in the middle of training, and oh, it turns out I really think he's hot. Like, can we just, why is this so long? For no reason. Like, if it had, it could be 3 times longer if it had a bunch of world building, a bunch of discussion about what was going on outside of the, like, about the world and about this battle and about, so there's actual plot. But it's just 500 pages with every now and then a little tiny bit of plot thrown in, a little bit, tiny bit of world building thrown in, but mostly just mooning over how hot Zayden is and complaining about how I'm not really made for this, but I'm gonna do, like, I don't want to be here, but I'm gonna be here. I want to leave, but I won't leave. Dane's really controlling, but Zayden's fine. Honestly, it's okay. I'm on the home stretch. Okay, so we're finally getting some actual storyline, and so the thing is that the evil, horrible creatures of myth exist, and the wards that surround Navarre, that protect Navarre from these creatures, are powered by this substance that also can get made into weapons to kill them. And Navarre don't want to share this substance, so they've created the wards to keep everyone safe and keep the Griffin people out so they can't get to it. And they've totally changed history and made up this whole story about how they're legends and not true, so that they can keep themselves all safe. And they've made this whole war up to keep themselves safe, when in actual fact they're hoarding these weapons, which I guess makes sense. But what doesn't make sense, we just had a conversation between Violet's dragon and Violet. So they're all off out of the wards and they're fighting, and Violet's discovered that it was this conspiracy, and Zayden was actually leading the conspiracy to smuggle weapons out to the Griffins, and this is what her mother and everybody's been trying to hide, and why everything's been redacted. And of course Violet's the only one to have figured this out, except that it's not, because anyway. But the dragon just had a conversation with Violet and said that he sent orders out to the Griffin riders, and Violet's all like, you can talk to Griffins. So dragons can talk to Griffins. So all the other dragons just, like, fully aware of what's going on and don't care and just want to keep themselves and their humans, for some reason, safe from these evil creatures. Or are they unaware? And if so, how are they unaware? Because surely the Griffins are telling them, like, hey guys, we need help. Or do they just hate Griffins? Like, it kind of felt like it made sense for like 5 minutes, and then it stopped making sense, because if they can talk, like, if they can talk to each other and they know what's going on and they know that the Griffins are unsafe, then why are they not doing anything about it? But this whole thing has been like, oh, well, dragons are just ruthless. So is it just that the dragons are like, no, we keep ourselves safe? But in that case, why do they go on these skirmishes? None of it doesn't make sense. No, it just still doesn't make sense, because what are the skirmishes in the border really about? It's this war, apparently, but that must be that Griffins are trying to get the weapons. But if the Griffins are trying to get the weapons, why don't they just tell the dragons why they're trying to get the weapons? Why would the dragons be perfectly okay with the humans hiding these venom creatures, these evil mythical creatures? Which implies that humans actually control dragons, which is the opposite of what we're told.
Hello. Okay, so I finished Fourth Wing. I finished it. Yeah, this was not great. This was way too long. It was so much pining and sparring, and I should be in the scribe quadrant, but I don't want to be in the scribe quadrant, but I want to be in the scribe. I grew up going to be a scribe, but I don't want to be a scribe anymore, and I want to find out who I am. Like, all this stuff is fine. I have no problem with it being there. It's just that it was just, that's all it was all the time, and there's like 500 pages of this thing. It was way too long. There were some majorly problematic things, but then at the very end, last 100 pages, she actually did some world building and did some plot, and it was half decent. If she had have had that the whole way through, I would have found it interesting. I mean, there were a lot of plot holes nonetheless in even what was given to us, and like, how happen? How could no one know about this? How could you be the only one to find out? Like that sort of stuff, where it's like, that doesn't make any sense, that the entire world wouldn't know if you like, you can't be the only one to have figured this out or discovered this or be aware of this or whatever. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff going on, a lot of like, oh, it's very convenient that you are the one discovering this sort of thing. But even so, like, it would have been potentially okay had it not been just so long. Like, I don't know how long these I think there's going to be a 5-book series and they're all going to be this sort of size, and there wasn't even that much smut. Like, you get smut in the last sort of 200 pages, which wasn't even that great. Like, I know they talk about how mind-blowing it is and amazing it is, and the sex is just phenomenal and so on. That's how they talk in the book, but there wasn't anything particularly interesting or groundbreaking. It was just the same stuff as you can read in any smutty book, you know? It wasn't even particularly well written, it wasn't particularly interesting smut, like, it wasn't unusual or anything. Even, I'm not saying it has to be unusual or anything, it just, like, in order to blow my mind, you have to write it really well, or you have to make it something I wouldn't have come across. You know what I mean? For smut, like, not in general. Although really good writing is something I really have realized that I require. If you are writing a book and it's not very well written, I'm not gonna like it. Like, even if it's something I should like, you know what I mean? This wasn't very well written. Like, it wasn't terribly written, and I get why people like it. It's easy to read, it doesn't demand a lot from you, it has some tropes that we like, it has the smouldering bad boy who's hot and also has actually got a heart of gold, it's got the tiny little girl who's not like other girls. If those are the kinds of things that you want, then, like, more power to you, and you'll get that in this book. I don't think it's terrible for that. There was a reveal at the end that that made me think, oh, maybe I do want to read the rest. But I've heard so many bad things about Iron Flame, even from those of you that love this book. So I just don't think I can do that to myself. And Alice and I have both decided that we are going to unhaul this book, because there are lots of people around who would like to read it. So all the tabs, for the most part, we have cheesy, we have quite a bit of not making sense, we have some bad decisions, we have a little bit of concerning, we don't have any good writing, we don't have any great smart. Yeah, it's all just kind of bland. So that's Iron Flame. No, Fourth Wing. And that is therefore the end of this vlog. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of the vlog. If you've gotten to the end of this and you really enjoyed Fourth Wing, and for some reason you decided to watch this video and continue watching it when it was clear that I didn't super enjoy it, feel free to let me know that you are one of the people that really love it. Like I said, I have no problem with that at all. Like, everyone is entitled to enjoy whatever they like, and like I said, it's pizza. I mean, you know, we all love pizza. Pizza's a good thing to have. It's like comfort food. Fun in moments, it's like exciting moments. You don't have to think too much, etc. Anyway, if anything that I've just said offends you, or if you've gotten this far and you're offended by, first of all, why are you here? I don't even know why you didn't turn the video off, but if you chose not to and you're still angry at me, I apologise that I made you feel bad, but I don't apologise for how I felt about the book. That is my prerogative, so, you know, do with that what you will. Anyway, that's the end of the video. So comment any thoughts you have below. Try and keep them nice to a certain extent if you can, that'd be great. If you'd like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me a dragon emoji, because there are dragons all the way throughout this book. All of my social media details are listed in the description below, so if you'd like to go and follow me on any of those other platforms, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.